Hey, and welcome back to Money for Life. My name is Kaylee Roberge.
And I'm Eric Roberge.
And today we want to dig into a very specific topic because I think this has been coming up a lot for clients and even prospective clients that we've been talking to. It kind of comes and goes in waves, or at least that's how I've noticed it. But I think there's a tendency sometimes for people to look for really fancy solutions to their financial planning challenges or questions that they have about money management. They're looking for really complex and complicated answers, or they feel like, there's just a strategy out there and it would be the perfect one for me if only I knew it. Like, what is it? And they come to us thinking we must have those answers. And a lot of the times, I think the best solution is a simpler one.
We do have the answers, and the answers aren't what they want to hear. Is the problem. It's just like a diet. It's just like a workout regimen where you're like, all right, if I get this thing right, I am going to blow up and be jacked, or I'm going to lose all kinds of weight, and tell me what it is. And then you get told what it is and you're like, damn, I knew that already. That's too hard.
Or you're like, I don't want to do that.
Right. Well, that seems too simple. I should be doing something more sophisticated, quicker, faster, something that nobody knows, because that's going to make me the better person in whatever category.
Yeah, I think that the real challenge there is thinking that you want the outcome for sure, but not necessarily wanting to go through the process. Or just like you were saying, you don't want to believe that the simple way, like that is actually the most effective thing to do. So that's what we're going to dig into today. Whether you want to hear it or not, we're going to talk about the most underrated strategies for financial success. Because also to your point, Eric, yes, you're right. We do have the answers. Like, this is the truth. This is it. There is no silver bullet magical thing, no process that only the ultra wealthy know. And if only you knew their secret, you too would be ultra wealthy. Thankfully, I think it's a good thing that success actually comes down to simpler things that are within your control, within your sphere of influence, which is great because you can do something about it.
Yeah, but now no one's going to listen to the end of this podcast because you just gave away the fact that there's no silver bullet. Maybe there is. In the last 3 sentences of this podcast, you will hear about the special silver bullet.
Yeah, we'll finally give it away. But up first, let's just dig into it then, because we're losing everybody. Oh no. I think the first thing is maybe it's the unsexiest thing. So yeah, we are. Everyone's just going to be like, done. The first strategy, almost underrated strategy, I think is to simply, I want to say spend less, but it's not even that. It's not spending less. It's spending better. And people don't talk about that. The fact that how you spend money is a skill that you can learn. Like, you can spend really well or you can spend really poorly. You're going to get different outcomes because it is a skill. It's something that you can learn and practice and get better at.
Well, yeah, and it could be spend less if you're spending too much, but it could be spend more if you're spending too little. And it more so could be just right size your spending to your income.
How do you do that? Is there any kind of objective framework that people can work through? Because I think it's easy to say, spend less. Well, like, what does that mean? Where do I start? Or how do I know, I guess? How do I know where I'm at?
Well, this is a major variable depending on how much income you make. And obviously, people are making all kinds of income levels across the globe, right? From zero to billions of dollars. So this is not a one size fits all rule. But if we're looking at the people that we tend to work with, those making $400,000 to $1 million in income. Right. So let's even make it even simpler from a math perspective. $250,000 to $750,000 in household gross income before taxes, before expenses, whatever. If we look at that and say, what should I spend? Why don't you try to spend 50% of that? Because that allows you to then pay taxes on the other 25% and save another 25%. And so when you look at the dollar amount for that, I have this chart over here. At $250,000, right? 50% of that is not hard math, but $125,000. So you have $125,000 to spend, $10,500 a month. Not a bad amount of money to spend, right? And you're saving another $62,500 for long-term investments. So it's the combination of both spouses maxing out their 401ks, maybe some Roth IRA, backdoor Roth contributions, and some in their taxable account, right? That's not hard to hit when you're making $250,000. Now, if you look at the other end of the spectrum at the $750,000 income, the dollars are more. It just makes sense. So $375,000 is half of that. So if you put 375 divided by 12, Now you're talking about $31,250 per month you can spend. It's a massive difference. And you make more money, so it makes sense. And then you save $187,500, which is going to fill up your 401ks, it's going to fill up your IRAs, and then you're going to still have an exceptional amount to put into your taxable account. And that money can go towards college, retirement, buying a second house, whatever. But it's that kind of framework that you can apply using percentages to your income to right set your savings plan, your spending plan, and say, am I in the right spot? Sure. Yes, you are. This is a fine place to be if you don't know.
I think the thing that's crazy, like if you just, that's so simple and basic, like anyone can understand that, but almost nobody does it, at least not for the time that you need to do it. Anyone can do that, like follow that plan for a year. And in year 2, you're like, all right, well, what's next? Like, do it again. Like, that's not exciting. And I think a lot of the time, like just as human beings, psychologically, you want novelty, you want something new, you want something that's more gratifying to see in that short-term period. So I think that's where the challenge is. We're saying that these things are simple. It's not easy. And that's why, again, why aren't more people in better financial shape? That's why, because taking that simple framework and putting it into your everyday life and sticking to it and being consistent, that is extraordinarily difficult to do long-term.
You're right. I mean, in the morning, I deal with it at breakfast, right? I like scrambled eggs. I like oatmeal. But if I have scrambled eggs and oatmeal every other day, I hate oatmeal by week 3. It's really good for me, especially those steel cut oats that we have. But what am I going to do? I get sick of it. You got to have a way to keep yourself interested in the thing if it's good for you. And really, that kind of moves toward the grounding yourselves in what you value and what your goals are and what your family priorities really are. Because if you can always remind yourself, I'm doing this because of X, it's a lot easier. So I'm eating oatmeal because I want to be really healthy when I'm 80 for my daughter. That to me is inspiring. I will eat oatmeal every day and rocks if I have to, right? If that's the case. But if you don't have that inspiring thing to look forward to or to remind yourself of, it's a grueling process that you are not going to stick with.
Yeah, I think that dovetails perfectly with the idea of spending better, because it's not that spending money is bad. You want to spend a reasonable amount relative to what you make and what you save, but then what you're spending on also matters. So, and I think that's part of where the inspiration can come from, is if your budget, if the way that you're using your money is aligned with things that truly matter to you and light you up, and you say no to the stuff that doesn't actually align with your idea of a good life, that can be a source of energy, that can be something that kind of pulls you forward versus is a distraction or makes you feel kind of even worse because you just spent your hard-earned money on something that you quote unquote should want or should have, but it's for other people, right? It's not for you. That can be kind of a grind that can really wear you down. And you might not even know it, because if you're not aware of it, like that I think is where people run into a lot of challenges, is they think they have to have a certain thing, but they've never questioned, like, okay, why do you think that? And if you dig into it, it's like, well, I don't know, because so-and-so has it, or because every parent at my kid's school has that, or the kids at my kid's school, they all have that thing. So my kid needs it too. And again, not easy. I don't know if I have any shortcuts for figuring that out. I think it takes a lot of really deep introspective work and willingness to question what it is that you want. That's a hard conversation. Actually, you met with a client, Eric, recently, who was like, this is like torture, when you were asking kind of like those squishier, more intangible questions about like, what is it that you want for your life? It was funny, but yeah, it can feel like a really painful process sometimes. And that's why more people don't go through it.
You're right. And I think there's a perspective shift that has to happen if it looks painful. It's either, right, the process itself is just wrong for you because it's not the same process for everybody, or you need to have a mindset shift to understand things from a different perspective. Like, for example, I was just thinking of the monthly spend thing. And if you look at those numbers again that we just talked about. So I'm going to use the middle ground, the $550,000. So this is a $550,000 gross income household. And we have $275,000 to spend annually if we want to spend 50% of that. And so that's $23,000 a month. So now if we say, all right, let's erase all of the stuff that we have in our mind about what we spend on and build a plan to spend that much money, that becomes a little bit more exciting. It's like, all right, we have 23 grand. How are we going to use it on a monthly basis? Of course, there's mortgage is going to take a chunk out of that, and and other fixed payments, whether you have student loans or car payments or school, whatever, that's going to take a chunk out. But there's probably, hopefully, going to be a good segment that is variable that you get to choose on whatever it is that you want, and only putting in what you actually really desire to spend on. And then you end up with like, wow, look at that. We've built up to the 50%, and we have, I'm making this up, but like $2,000 a month that we could spend on restaurants if we wanted to. Not saying that's a good thing to do, but if you've actually set yourself up to save 25%, set aside another 25% for taxes. By the way, taxes could be more or less for you, just as a general rule. And then we have this other money to spend. It's all good. So it's a good, empowering framework to start from the ground up to say, this is how much money we have to spend. What do we want to put in the budget versus saying, what do we want to take out of the budget? That's a big difference.
Yeah, I think you just backed us in nicely to the second strategy I had on my list here, which is to adjust your expectations or your perspective or both. That's exactly what that is. That's flipping it rather than saying like, what do I have to cut back on or where do I need to spend less? It's what do I have to spend and how do I want to spend it? Like it's the same conversation, but you're coming at it from a different angle, and that can really change your motivation around it. You can find some intrinsic motivation there. That can change your energy and make it more of an exciting exercise where you're starting with what do I want versus like, oh, what do I got to strip out of here? Yeah,
that's important. I got distracted by your comment about, I forget what it was even. I was thinking about Mario Kart.
As one does.
It was setting expectations, right? So we've been playing Mario Kart 8 on Switch with our daughter recently, and she loves it. And I get super frustrated. I feel like a child when I play that game. I get super frustrated and it's embarrassing. But I'm like, why did that just happen? Like I just got blown up. There was nothing there. It just happened. And it's the video game, right? It happened for whatever reason. It still happened. It's not out to get me, but in my mind it is. It's like I got unfairly blown up and pushed off to the side. And now I have to reset again. And so if you think about this in setting expectations properly, like you can't have expectations that aren't aligned with reality. And if you can understand that, if you can adjust your expectations so that that actually fits into reality, you're going to be upset less than you otherwise would be.
I think that was a life-changing thing for me when I just realized that I could resist everything that was happening that I didn't think should be happening, like financially or otherwise. This is just like life in general, or like your thing with Mario Kart. I could say like this banana peel was unjustly put in front of me, which is how a lot of people go through life. Or you could just accept what is, like it is the banana peel. Like it is, and I hit it. That happened. I don't have to make it wrong or right. I don't have to defend myself against, whatever. I can just accept that is the situation. I can accept the isness of the situation. I tell myself that all the time whenever I start to get frustrated or start to get on that thought of like, this happened to me or this was unfair. Like, just let me take a step back, and it is what it is. What can I change and what can't I? So I can let go of the things that I can't change and roll with whatever is there. And that's not to say that bad things don't happen. It's not like a toxic positivity thing where it's like, just smile through it. It's like, find the silver lining or find the good. Like my mom says that all the time, and I kind of hate it, to be honest with you. Because sometimes there is no good. And that is part of accepting the situation. Sometimes like, this is a bad situation. That sucks. That is part of accepting it, is just like acknowledging it. So like things can happen to you. Like for us, for example, our cat was just recently diagnosed with lymphoma. It's a terminal cancer. We've had this cat for 13 years, and she's a huge part of our family. And also, we're now racking up thousands of dollars in vet bills as part of this process. Like all of that really sucks. And it feels like it's wrong and it's unfair. And it is what it is. So instead of getting wrapped up in that, I'm going to focus on like, well, she's still here now, so I can snuggle her and love on her as much as I can. I can take the best care of her that I can. I can rely on this emergency fund that we've built to handle these vet bills, so that I can not get worried about like that bill that's coming, right? Because I know we have this emergency fund that's going to handle it. And again, it sucks that I have to spend our cash in that way. And that's why we planned for it, because life isn't going to go your way a lot of the times. Probability says like bad things are going to happen to you at some point, and it's not to be negative. Actually, I was listening to another podcast, The Knowledge Project, and James Clear was on it. And he said this thing that like I've been thinking about a lot, where he was saying someone had told him like life comes for all of us at some point. And it's not a negative thing. Again, it's just a reality of like this is what living life is like. Things are, you're going to get curveballs, you're going to get hard things, and you can either resist that and kind of make it worse sometimes, drag it out, or you can accept it and then ask like, what now? What am I going to do now?
Yeah. I was just thinking, going back to Stormy again, the cat, like we could also say like, you know what? We're just going to push our way through and we're going to do everything possible and spend all the money on chemotherapy and really beat this thing. And then we have to ask ourselves, is that the best route for the quality of life for the cat? And in talking with the vet, it's not, right? Like that's really not going to do, it's going to waste a lot of money. It's going to put her through hell. And it's probably not going to be a better life for anybody. Like we're going to be stressed. She's going to be stressed. So instead we'll just maybe take some steroids and hope for the best. And the life isn't going to be long, but it's going to be as much quality as possible. So that's a really tough pill to swallow. And we're going to do it that way because of the bigger picture, setting expectations, adjusting those expectations to reality, and winning in the end by the choices we make, because what we value is quality of life for all involved.
Right. That actually brings us again to the third strategy that I had on my list, which was to keep some cash on hand. And I have like some in parentheses instead of just keep cash on hand. Because like everything else, it's a double-edged sword. There is such a thing as having too much cash sitting on the sidelines and not working for you. That is a risk that you take out, a financial risk, the same as, well, not the exact same, but you take risk by investing your money in the market. Investment risk is, you can't avoid that. But you also can't avoid the risk of inflation with your cash sitting on the sidelines, not growing if you need that money in the future. And we all do, because we all hope to stop working at some point. So I think a majorly underrated strategy for how powerful it is having the correct amount of cash on hand.
Yeah, this is a rabbit hole conversation for sure, because you could just look at this very specifically at the cash in the bank. But ultimately, it's a conversation about liquidity. I need access to cash in some fashion. How do I create the most liquidity possible to protect myself against these unknowns that might pop up? Either it's a timing thing. We have an expense that came quicker than we ideally wanted it to because we were going to have a bonus or something else coming our way down the road. Or it's a pop-up expense that was unexpected completely. We don't have cash coming down the road and we just need money now. The preparing for those things are going to be different. But if we look at just having cash in the bank, I mean, and if you have, when I was younger and had made less money, I needed less cash in the bank, partially because my expenses were less, but partially because it was adjusted to my income level. And now making more money, having more cash in the bank is actually a good thing because it just gives us the flexibility we need. And we don't feel like we have to have every single dollar possible working for us, even though optimally in a spreadsheet, all the money should be working for you, should be making as much money as possible on every single dollar that you don't use today. But if we have enough money working for us and we still have enough cash to be in the bank to sleep at night money and cushion money and just overall flexibility and liquidity money, so be it. Like have the amount of money that makes you feel good if your rest of your plan anyway is on track.
Do you have a similar framework to where you broke down the spending by spend 50% because 25% is going to savings, 25% is going to taxes? Do you have kind of an objective framework for how much cash is the correct amount to keep on hand? Or is that no, because of what you just said of like, it's a squishy thing and it's emotional. It's not something that's just objective.
I'm just thinking about like all the clients that I've looked at as far as like cash and balance sheet and income goes. And although the general cookie cutter emergency reserve number is 3 to 6 months of your average monthly income or 3 to 6 months of your average monthly expenses, whatever you want to look at, we tend to default, I don't know if it's by accident or on purpose, but to about 10% of your income in cash. And so again, it doesn't matter what the rule is as long as you have the cash you need to take care of yourself. But then you do have to layer in other things. So like, what do we have cash for? Well, yeah, it's the pop-up expenses. But if you're making $500,000 and you have 10%, so 50 grand in the bank, a pop-up car breakdown isn't going to wipe you out, right? So you don't have $50,000 because of the random car expense. Maybe it's the random but significant short-term disability where you don't have disability insurance and you're not going to make money for 8 weeks. or pregnancy, right? If you're out of work and you don't have a paid maternity leave, you need some cash there to fund your life when you don't have income coming in.
I think it's just a timing of life events things too. Like it could be just everything hitting at once, right? Like when it rains, it pours, and your cash flow normally could have handled those things, but suddenly they all hit at once, and it's not necessarily you didn't plan on it. Like that's another good reason to have cash on hand. And I'm just thinking for us again, with our daughter last fall, she was diagnosed with celiac. And part of that process to get an official diagnosis for that, she had to have an endoscopy. So that was, I think, total, like her medical bills came out to be like $7,000, and they all like hit at once. So not that I'm necessarily planning on spending that every year, but that's not crazy in a family to need that. And then at the same time, Eric, you had some stuff that you got an MRI for. This is when the cat started having an issue. So it was all of it all at once. And kind of going back to the perspective thing, you can look at that and be like, oh, what bad luck. This happened to me. How horrible is this? Unfair. Or you could just look at it as it is what it is. And I expect these things to happen from time to time. I didn't necessarily expect it to go exactly like this. But if I look out in the next 5 years, will I run into bad luck? Yes. What can I do about it? I can keep the appropriate amount of cash on hand. I can keep my spending relative to my income so that I can kind of handle the little stuff as it comes. I can make little adjustments to my cash flow. And then when the big stuff hits, I know I'm going to get through it because I've prepared for it, even though I didn't know what the bad luck was going to manifest as. I could just expect there's going to be a bump in the road somewhere. So let me have a contingency in place to manage that.
Yeah. And all circumstances will be different here. And I'm thinking of like other clients and even us where we're trying to just pad our liquidity. So now we have the right cash in the bank, but we also want to just create more liquidity for the timing issue of cash flows, right? Cash flow timing. If we don't have a quarterly distribution for another 3 months and something happens where we're like, well, we were planning on this anyway, but now it just sped up 6 months. We shouldn't delay it. We should just try to access cash otherwise. So the cash in the bank isn't enough in this case. So what else do you have? Well, you could put a HELOC on your home. So you have this line of credit using your equity in your house to tap into at a moment's notice, with the idea that you have to pay that back and it's going to increase your expenses until you pay it back. But if you have cash flow, like a bonus coming in 6 months, all right, 6 months at 7.5% isn't terrible because then you pay it back, right? Or you have a line of credit on your brokerage account. So a pledged asset line, you'd call it, where you can use up to 50% of your investments in a loan. You don't sell your investments, you keep them invested. They're still earning. And you use that money for, again, a short-term period of time. We had a client do this recently where they were buying a house. They needed a bunch of cash. They knew the bonus was coming next month. They just needed a 30-day window of liquidity. So they took out the line of credit, paid for the down payment on their house, got the bonus, paid it back, all good going forward. All right. So you're not accessing the line of credit because you don't have the money and you can't afford it and you're trying to create more artificial money. It's, no, we have the money. It's basically guaranteed. It's just going to take some time to get there. And so we need a short-term fix.
I like that strategy. That's a good one. Another one that we have on our list here as an underrated strategy for finding financial success would be tracking your money usage, even if you don't have to, in quotes, budget. You don't necessarily have to budget to get by, but I still think it's a good idea to get in the habit of tracking where does your money go, not just spending, but track your savings, track your contributions to retirement accounts and investment accounts, just so you build awareness. Because I think that's the real secret. If you wanted a silver bullet, like to me, that is it. More awareness, more paying attention to what your money is doing. Like that is like a superpower that people don't talk about or think about, but it really makes a big difference when you just give your money your attention, because that's when it surfaces like other thoughts, questions, more intentionality. It's really game changing. So that's why I suggest to people, like, track your spending, every dollar, write it down, because you can't help but to be aware of it if you're doing that.
And the awareness is helpful. You don't have to do it every day for your entire life unless you want to, but the awareness initially frames the habit, or at least identifies where you're out of whack, and you can pull things back into place. And so doing that from time to time is really helpful as a refresher to where money is going. What spending do I want to cut out because it just doesn't feel good, versus what spending do I want to do more of because it does actually add a lot of value to my life. It's just responsible. It's responsible money as well. I mean, to not know where any of your money is going is, in my mind, irresponsible. And if you're making good money, it's your responsibility to be a good steward to that money.
Yeah. I think part of that, this isn't budgeting, right? It's not about budgeting. People hear that and they're like, I don't want to do that. It's too tedious. Like, yeah, I agree with you. So it's not about that or limiting yourself. It's more like being curious. Where is my money going? Like, in order to track your money, you kind of have to have that question, right? And I think approaching anything in your life with some curiosity makes you a little bit more open-minded, makes you a little bit more willing to see new information, which leads to like a new opportunity, leads to a different strategy that you didn't know about. So I think it's like this domino effect that starts with just being curious and say like, all right, where does my money go? And not making it mean anything unless it's coming up to you as like, oh, I don't like that. That's probably a good thing to know, to realize like maybe that's a place that you can make a change.
Sure. And don't make yourself wrong. I think that's one of the resistance too. It's like, I don't want to find out because I'm going to feel bad. Okay, don't feel bad. Just say, hey, this is just an objective conversation. It's going to help me in the end. Wherever I spend my money is where I spend my money, and I can make adjustments if I want to, but I just want to know. But that fear of the unknown is significant. Right? Like tonight, I'm going to play hockey for the first time in this league. I've played hockey all my life, but I haven't played in this setup. So I'm nervous because I'm going to go there. I don't know the setup. I don't know if in this group they wear shoulder pads. I don't know. I was told that they all wear cages. I have a half shield. I mean, it's just like, I don't know things. And am I going to fit in? Am I not going to fit in? Who knows? In the end, I know how to play. I'm going to show up and we'll figure it out. But because I don't know, there are some nerves beforehand that are healthy and normal. So anything, budgeting included, if you don't know something and you want to find out, you need to do it, but you also could feel a little nervous about what the answers actually are on the other side.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I mean, I'm sure like 5 minutes after you get there today to the rink, like those nerves will disappear. Actually, now I know. It's not that I have to even have it figure out. I know a little bit more now. It's not so much of a black box of like, what is going on? What am I going to walk into? Because then your imagination starts going. So yeah, you're right. Same thing with anything that's a little bit new or that you aren't in a habit of. That feeling is normal. And it also goes away as soon as you actually start trying to do the thing, even if you don't have the thing mastered, which is, I think, the good news. Our fifth and last strategy that we wanted to highlight here, as far as something that's underrated that can really, really help you. This is another mindset thing, but it's to be a student of history. And the reason that this is important is because if nothing else, it helps you understand, no, it's not different this time. Like, no, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. There are patterns that we can see. There are things that we can learn from understanding more about what has historically happened in the market, or just generally, like when you look at current events and you get really caught up in that and you think like, oh my gosh, this is like unprecedented. Sometimes, yes, but you can usually find a corollary in history somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, the older I get, two things come to light. One, I know far less than I think I do. And history is so interesting because it's where we came from. And to not know history is putting you in a place where you're bound to repeat it. And I'm not the first person to say something like that, but it is so ridiculous to look back and say, how forgetful are human beings?
Yeah.
We've just done this. It was just 200 years ago. It's the same thing. So if you can just look at history, understand the macro history of the world, but also just the micro history of your own life, and not forget about those things that can help inform your decisions going forward because you've been through them before, or we as a human race have been through them before, the world becomes a lot less, I mean, it's pretty crazy, but like a lot less, I don't know, nerve-wracking or just like unknowable in a sense.
Yeah, I think the other thing that it does for you is, again, it gives you perspective. This was not me saying it. I heard Morgan Housel talking about this, but it really stuck with me as like, oh man, yeah, right. He was talking about how in the 1950s, there was like a big housing boom as suburbs were getting built out. And, you know, all these houses were going up there. A lot of them were prefab houses and areas that were just, you know, woods or swamps, whatever. And they're building all these houses and, you know, people are buying houses for $20,000, you know, and I think what his point was, a lot of people today, yes, there is a housing crisis in terms of affordability. Like it is not okay. It is not good right now. And the solution isn't just to look back and be like, oh, baby boomers screwed up everything because look at what they were able to do versus what, Gen X is able to do with buying a house. Because he was saying that the houses that they were buying, they were 700 square foot. They had one bathroom, for you and your 5 kids to share. Like he was saying the houses that you were able to buy with the $20,000 and that, yesterday's money, we would consider that to be like living in poverty now. Like our expectations have shifted. And he wasn't saying it was a bad thing. He was saying that was part of the point. That's what progress is that each generation is better and better off. However, we get very used to and very comfortable with our new standard of living very quickly, and we don't want to go backward. And he wasn't advocating for doing so, but it was more, again, that perspective of you're not comparing apples to apples when you're looking at someone in their 20s and 30s trying to buy a house for the first time today versus the people who got married when they were 21 and 22 and bought their house right away on a one salary household. It's not the same. And that's what I think learning some history gives you is the understanding of things are not that simple. It's not that black and white. There's a lot of nuance and there's so much that's non-linear that goes into what's happening today.
The question being how is this the same and how is it different than the past? And then if it's the same, well, how did people work their way out of it? If it's different, what can we create for a solution? Because it truly is different and it's not been seen before. So we need a new answer for things.
I think understanding history is it gives you almost like some inoculation against the media hype and frenzy that's going on, like current day and headlines. Everything is so emotional around financial markets and people's predictions about what's going to happen next with the stock market. And I think just having some historical background, it lets you take a step back from that and lower the temperature of that rhetoric a little bit so that you don't have to get so caught up in it so fast, because it's very easy to do. And that's what CNBC would like you to click on their article and they would like you to stay on their website. So of course they're going to use emotionally charged language to do that. So I think understanding some history and remembering, even Eric, as you said, from your own lifetime, what has happened and how it was not the end of the world in the end. We found a new answer. We found a solution. We found our way through. To me, it's just a nice grounding mechanism that helps keep me calm, helps me keep that long-term perspective to see the forest for the trees.
Yeah. Otherwise you are stuck reading the headline, financial markets hit their all-time high. We are on the precipice of a complete and utter disaster. Okay, let's look at history. History says when we hit new market highs, the next 1, 3, and 5 years are at least 10% returns. So we shall be celebrating. They're not going to put that in the headline. Hit new highs, expectation should be another 10%. That doesn't get anybody clicking. It gets people excited a little bit, but it's not going to instill the fear that they want. So the clickability is not there. And people actually, they're not going to be scared to death if they don't read that stupid headline. So they need to put that stupid headline out there.
So none of these things are complicated. They're all pretty simple. That does not mean they are easy, but I do think if you could just pick one thing out of this conversation and implement it, starting with look at your spending. How does it stack up against that ratio that Eric shared, or track where your money goes? Does that make you happy? Or is it that's kind of out of whack with what I said I wanted? It's kind of just a gateway to potential positive change. And I think if you can keep that, mindset of curiosity and openness, I think that will really help move the needle on your finances.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Money for Life, hosted by Eric Roberge, CFP and founder of Beyond Your Hammock, and me, Kaylee Roberge. Our show is produced and edited by Steve Stewart. If you want to learn more about wealth management and hiring your own personal financial advisor, visit beyondyourhammock.com. And now for the legal stuff. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice, and may not cover all critical, complete details of every situation discussed. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the host or the podcast. Please consult a qualified professional about your specific situation before making any financial decisions based on this podcast or any other educational content designed for a general audience.